Hello everyone, my name's Julia Robertson and I'm the founder of Galen Myotherapy. Welcome to Maggie Mumbles. Now, any of you that know, we had Tilly Talks, and we're still having Tilly Talks, all about the development of a puppy and puppies in general. Now, Maggie Mumbles is all about the adult dog, the mature dog. Now, Maggie, who you can see behind me, is my 9 3/4-year-old Labrador. So she's seen a bit of life and she's had a few ups and downs and a few injuries that have impacted on her body. So she felt that she would be the good voice for the mature dog. She also has been very much part of training students in the past, in her own way, on her own terms. She is very opinionated and she loves the medium of video. So she's very happy to video. So this is a perfect way of her having her way of expressing her views and getting the word of the mature dog out there. So we are also incredibly fortunate at Galen Myotherapy. We train a lot of students into amazing therapists. And they may have come to do the diploma from a perspective of an interest, and that interest then turns into a speciality. And they turn into highly talented, highly knowledgeable myotherapists generally, but also have this wonderful specialism. And it's so great to be able to talk to Sarah Hancox today, who is one such therapist who has turned her love of, now I call them sight hounds or Greyhounds Lurchers, into part of her working business. So Sarah, welcome.
Thank you, Julia. It's lovely to be here.
Well, it's lovely to talk to you. Now, where are you talking to us from? Because I know where you live, but I must admit, every time you say it, I get instantly jealous.
Yeah, I'm based in the Derbyshire Peak District, so I am very lucky to be in just such a beautiful part of the country. It's a fantastic place. It is fantastic. Just
lovely, and lovely for the type of dogs. I can sort of see just behind you.
Yes, sort of. You can see his ears. There he is.
Oh, there he is. There he is. And his name is?
He's called Fionn.
So Sarah, tell us a little bit then about how this love, when it started, perhaps, some of the dogs you had, and if that is what drove you to doing the myotherapy, and basically how you're using it.
Ooh, so many questions.
Big question.
Big question. Well, I moved up here. I'm not originally from here. I moved up here about 18 years ago now,
right.
And realised that walking around the Peak District was always a little bit strange on your own. You always felt like a weird old lady. Yeah. So getting the dogs was the next step. So I had 2 Lurchers about 18 years ago now.
Right.
Brother and sister, classic mistake apparently. But they were the most wonderful Lurchers, and they just changed everything really. You suddenly became able to be yourself, be out there with 2 dogs without having to answer to anybody. As they got a little bit older, we were actually at a folk festival. It's slightly strange story. We'd been at a folk festival, went to see a human therapist because my back was hurting, and he had such a wonderful affinity with my dogs. They were all over him as if they knew him. And I just started to begin to think, I wonder if I can combine the 2. Could there be something that I was seeking for humans, for animals? And that's really what set it off, and really trying to keep them as healthy and fit and able to do what they wanted to do for as long as possible really was the next step. And so they lived till 16 and a half.
Did they?
I was quite proud of that.
Yeah, you should.
16 and a half and just about 16. So
that is fantastic, because the reason why we wanted to talk about Lurchers, Greyhounds, sight hounds, is that they are just a little different from other breeds, aren't they? I know when we've talked before, we've talked about the fact that they don't really know stop, and they might not see something straight in front of them when they're running, so they can be quite prone to injury, can't they?
Definitely. And they also have very thin skin, so often that
Right.
they also get, so that sort of physical thing as well as sort of muscular injury as well.
So what other differences have you found over your 18, 19 years of experience with them?
Stealth,
Right.
personality, sneakiness.
Yeah.
I think the very fact that they were bred, I suppose in terms of lurchers, to do a job, but they came out of necessity. They had a fantastic history about a time where only nobility could own greyhounds. No one could own a greyhound. So if you wanted a dog to do a certain type of job, you would breed your own, usually as a cross between something else that was knocking around, something that might herd or something, and something that would chase. So hence the lurcher really sort of came along. So I've always been fascinated, and my local pub has a very long history of sort of lurcher ownership, and there's usually more dogs in there than people. And I have been in there when there's been 13 dogs on the tables, on the chairs. It's
fantastic.
If you're a hygiene freak, definitely not. But in terms of differences, certainly greyhounds have so many different physiological differences as well. Muscle mass, they have larger hearts, they have all sorts of differences to do with their circulatory system, which makes them such good at what they originally were bred to do. And they take a little bit of adaptation into the home sometimes, but once you get them there, they are the most phenomenal creatures.
And they also, from a treatment perspective, I've never lived with a lurcher greyhound, but I have treated a few in my time. And the one thing that I must say, I do know that they are different because they are stoic in one way, and then suddenly you'll get what I call the greyhound scream.
Yep.
And nowhere you're treating, and then suddenly they just go, wah! And everyone jumps in the room. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. At the smallest of things. I mean, as you know, my dog was bitten by a snake last year, and he had 5 months of bandage changes every day. And he had to be lifted onto the vet's table, and he never flinched. But when he snapped one of his dew claws, very, very quick procedure, vet came in, went to snap it off, and he howled the place down. It just depends. It really just does depend. They're very quick to scream and very quick to recover in those sort of circumstances.
Incredible. But I suppose most of the greyhounds that I've treated, and I have treated greyhounds because very close to where I am, there's a rehoming for racing greyhounds. And I've treated a lot of the greyhounds that have retired from the racetrack for whatever reason, and are now rehomed. Now, I know that you've seen quite a few too. What, in your experience, and this is where we can definitely combine our joint experiences, but what in your experience has been some of the most, not obvious, but prevalent injuries that you've been treating sort of post-injury stage, sort of, so it's in its chronic stage?
Yeah, I think most of the time, a lot of the injuries are kind of left really. So by the time they've got into a home, they are chronic. It isn't always very obvious what's caused them. It could be multiple things, but most of that comes down to how the dog interacts with the track when they're working really, or when they're racing. Even to the point that the bones do start to remodel and put more strength into the actual the rail side really on that inner turn. So those inner bones are actually stronger. Right,
that's very interesting.
One way that they actually adapt.
They're tracks, aren't they? They're
the dog runs anti-clockwise.
Yeah. Okay.
So mostly we tend to think about what I suppose what would cause most of the things. So if the dog, most of the injuries come from the way the dog, as I said, interacts and the paw hits. So if the left front paw places onto the ground, the dog, I'm miming this now, it's a bit ridiculous. The dog will obviously tense up muscles like, yes, you can't see my hands, but I am turning. So things like the triceps will tighten up to stable. So everything's a matter of stabilizing in relation to the forces that the dog's body is undertaking. So whether that's gravity, whether that's forward propulsion, whether it's how it strikes the ground. So the dog will place the left foot down and it will pivot its body on that. So that tight triceps is quite likely to tear, to undergo muscle damage. etc. As obviously can the paws, the tendons.
The tricep is here for us, isn't it? Which is exactly the same position, just behind the elbow in the dog. Yeah.
So that's planted, tightened, and turned on.
Wow.
And that can cause
no injuries are never good, are they?
No, not at all. So obviously shoulders will get tight. What we tend to find on the back legs is, whilst the left back leg is the one that drives round the track, again, it's the bends that make it so dangerous. So it's often the right rear that's the one that has to provide some propulsion, but also, again, that turning.
Yeah.
So inner muscles of the thigh are trying to keep the leg down against, I suppose, centrifugal force if it's pulling it out.
Yeah.
Again, tightens, tries to hold the body down, and again, as it's trying to move in an arc to get the dog around that corner, you often see gracilis tears, and that kind of thing. And because they're not...
So, can I just... The gracilis tears are inner thigh.
Inner thigh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the big kind of bulgy ones that kind of rub together.
Yeah. Okay.
Very... Yes.
But, yeah, it's very common, isn't it?
It is, and they tend to usually be left to repair on their own. So the muscle drops away from its attachment point. It's replaced by scar tissue, which is hard, tough, etc. Yeah. But it doesn't have that flexibility. So the dog is less flexible around the hips, the back legs. And of course,
it's the stability too, isn't it? They lack that medial, inside stability. So that goes to their hips also. Yeah.
And they become stiffer, compensate all over, etc. And that's taken up by the back, the gluteals, etc.
Yeah. And of course, when they are racing, this left-hand track, it's not just them on their own. They're going to have argy-bargy from other dogs. And of course, there are falls, and I've seen I've heard of and seen a couple of falls where they actually whiplash because they're going so fast with so much drive.
Whiplash. That's interesting.
That they not just whiplash their neck, but they can whiplash their lower back, can't they? It can really. I mean, a lot of dogs can do that, but it's there for them to do, isn't it?
Yeah. Corners are not a nice place, really. I mean, obviously they're put there to entertain the public, but really the potential for damage as dogs take different lines around, in the same way as racing cars do. You take a racing line, and if they all want the same line, they're going to either drift, flip, tumble. I'm surprised we don't see more. I mean, I suppose we don't see them because it's too late, but they are all harbouring something, and I think that's what makes them survivors. Is that every dog that is rehomed is going to come with a selection of compensations and chronic injuries.
Exactly. Now, we're obviously not in any way making a political statement or even a statement about racing. Our job is to look after the dogs that have come out of racing, or if we are.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's what we wanted. And of course, anything that is repetitive, and even a minor injury, repetitive can become then obviously ongoing, a chronic problem. And this could be something that could slow a dog down eventually, and then that could be part of them retiring. So it may not be something dramatic, but it will. With these retired greyhounds, there's always something, isn't there?
Yeah, and you find that with that that kind of overuse, that repetitive strain, the muscles will become overworked. They'll become hypertonic, and they won't be able to relax. So the muscles, the limbs can't kind of stretch comfortably. They then adapt their gait. They then adapt everything else to do with it.
Yeah, which is the same for other dogs, but these dogs got such big, bulky muscles anyway. What did you say that? Got extra percentage of muscle on normal breeds, or
I think it's about 10% extra.
Really, and that's a lot. And then when these muscles shorten, of course, it's going to have impact on the joints. And as you say, they can't relax and stretch, so they become shorter and shorter, don't they?
Then something else takes over. And so the idea, obviously, what we really want to do is just allow them to sort of relax a little bit more and gain that little bit more movement, because I don't know. I mean, I've never met anyone other than I assume in a show ring that has a greyhound that's never raced. I suppose one or two of them might get away with it. So, but the chances are that every dog that's in rescue will have raced and will have stopped racing because of an injury. Otherwise, they'd still be making money for someone.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're all going to carry something.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that I know that you're very passionate about are toes. Toes, big bugbear.
If you think about, I mean, I don't know, an average dog, I think mine's averagely on the heavy side. He's nearly 40 kilos. He's a big dog. So that amount of weight for these spindly little feet during their career, obviously everything relates to, I suppose every bit of body weight goes through those toes and interacts with that sandy surface.
Aren't they? They're very long.
Yep, they're long. And so they can be prone, because of their changes in their physiology. No, there doesn't appear to be a real finite cause of corns, but I think most people now are coming around to it being a mechanical impact, really, on the fact that they have less paw pad fat. And so again, that repetitive mechanical force through those feet, if it's stable
and uneven force too,
absolutely,
just like humans.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's not equal, if the weight isn't spread between the feet, they will start getting these things, and they are kind of a keratinized protein sort of thing, really, a bit like nail and hair. But I think what bothers, I think all of us really, is just the amount of quite invasive treatment that happens. Instead of maybe giving something like therapy, something that would rebalance the musculoskeletal system, a chance, instead of going down that route of cutting tendons or amputating, which is a terrible worry. I mean, you get to a point when the more you you're going to get a dog that's got no toes. At what point do you decide that actually you've cut that toe off, then you need to cut this toe off because you've got another corn? It is really down, once you go down that route, there's no return.
I've treated quite a few dogs that had toes removed for whatever reason, not just lurchers and greyhounds. And the reason that my theory is that particular toe that has been removed was the problem, was because that was the loading toe. So the whole body was loading onto that. So of course it becomes injured. So you remove that toe that was actually taking the load's got to go somewhere else, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
So as you say, go to another part of the foot. I've seen a lot of dogs that just splay. Their feet have splayed to try and
stabilize.
But basically it looks bad, but what's going on in the rest of the body is so much worse, isn't it, than what you can actually see.
Absolutely.
Your experience too.
Definitely. And I think conservative management is what's needed. Not going to extremes that you can't. I mean, I don't know enough about, and I've actually had to write it down, this flexor tenotomy. It's tenotomy.
Okay, that's a very big word, Sarah.
It is. So yeah, flexor tenotomy. I think it's newish in terms of surgery. I might be completely wrong, but it isn't something that I had heard a lot of. And so basically they cut the, where's my hand? They cut the tendon under here, and that stops the toe from being pulled back.
Right. Okay.
And therefore, so that takes the weight off the toe. So the toe knocks up slightly, but that pressure's removed, but the toe is still there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's quite interesting. But I would like them not to have had to come up with another surgery to replace something that might have been able to have balanced elsewhere. But
I mean, obviously, surgery is fantastic when there's nothing else that can be done, and the dog's whole quality of life is being really. But we love to see these dogs first, don't we? To see if there is anything that we can do. Yeah. Initially, as you quite rightly say, conservatively, not conservatively, conservatively. To help rebalance them as a whole, which of course isn't just going to help that, but it's going to help
them all over.
Isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
And if it works, that's fantastic. If it doesn't work, then obviously I would never berate anyone for going down another route. It'd be nice to try to see, if more can be done. Now that more people are beginning to realise that, you know, the likelihood of it being a virus is much less.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No interest. No, toes, as you say, are absolutely, so candidly in the beginning, all the body weight goes through the toes, whatever the breed. But of course, the more load they're putting on, and when they're turning or whatever they might do, and the speed as well, it's going to have a great impact, especially when they are so very long and sort of unprotected, really, aren't they? Because they are so long, rather than the chunkier Labrador foot.
Yes, with a big kind of sort of fur around it. They are very exposed.
Yeah,
extremely. Can't think what else I was going. Oh, dew claws.
I'm just coming to a Tilly. Sorry, Tilly, this isn't your talk.
Oh, Tilly, it might be. But again, it goes down to dew claws. You know, the dog's body is there to be used in a certain way. It's not to have bits taken off it. And you know, I've seen videos of dogs pulling themselves out of ice using their dew claws, and these are duck chasing dogs of some sort, probably in Canada. Well, but they use them.
The namesake here, her dew claws are incredibly strong. Love watching.
And you watch them on the turn.
Oh, but watching her eat a bone, she almost scares
thumbs.
I'm sure they're almost opposable thumbs.
Yeah. No, they really
Whoa!
They are. I mean, they're horrible when they get hurt, but that's not a reason to take them off, because they need them.
Yeah, they do.
Because if that dog hadn't, let's say a dog does pull his dew claw, which they do, if
they do. I'm sorry.
if they didn't pull that dew claw, what would they have pulled instead?
Yeah, exactly. Or they may not have been able to pull themselves out of the problem or the danger that they were in.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Sarah, one last thing. I think we did, and I think it can be a real misnomer that I know I laugh about a lot, are these rescue greyhounds. I mean, they're fast and furious, aren't they? I mean, they're all over the place, aren't they? Or are they couch potatoes?
Oh, good grief. Don't expect to get fit. I'm just wondering whether you can see mine. No.
They've moved a whole. Oh, are they? Oh, asleep.
That's it. That is it. The big slot.
A normal state, is it?
Oh yes. Normal day. Terrible. Terribly lazy. Totally lazy. Likes to go out for a walk. He'll get really excited, and then he'll decide it's raining, or actually he's not really in the mood after all. 10 minutes and he's back. Sometimes happy to go much longer. Just depends on the mood. Couple of 20-minute walk. I mean, no, lots of dogs will walk further, etc. But in terms of rescuing, just because they're a big dog doesn't mean to say that they won't fit into most homes, and they are very, very undemanding, even for much older people as well. So they do make fantastic pets. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I must admit, everyone that I've met, everyone said the same. They are the most wonderful companions to have, because they'll basically, you might have to have an extra sofa for them, mightn't you? Or for you, maybe.
Well, I've got two in the clinic now, and I don't think I've ever sat on them.
But talking about your clinic, Sarah, first of all, thank you. I know this is just the smallest amount of your knowledge and interest, and it's just great to have a chat with you about this, because they are Lurchers, Greyhounds, Sighthounds. They are just a little different, aren't they? And they are they're so ancient in there.
I think that maybe that's part of that there is something that they haven't changed for so long. I mean, genetically, greyhounds are very, very healthy. You don't get hip dysplasia in them. They do have certain things that obviously, there are issues with, but they are very, very healthy, and they are 8,000 years old, something like that.
Amazing. Well, you're good on that. The 8,000-year-old thing. No, but
very special and make fantastic pets, and I think that ancient breed is part of it.
Yeah, I would say. Now, what I wanted to just divert to you now. Now, very exciting that you're opening your new clinic, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's you can't quite see, but it's called Moorland Canine Myotherapy. Is that right?
Yeah. It's a slightly old sign, but it's up on the wall because I haven't had time to decorate. So it's all very clinical, very clean and white. But this is, I've got an office and a treatment room, and I've got a larger room where we can have workshops, and I should be running workshops in there as well.
You really must do that, because I know that people would love to learn more from you. But people can contact you. We'll put your contact details below. But if by any chance you can't go onto the Galen site, look up Sarah under practitioners, and you can contact her and arrange treatments, or look out and see coming up as far as workshops and things are concerned. Your clinic is going to be a great success. You're so knowledgeable. You're so passionate. I know that your passion is coming through, which is lovely. And it's just such a pleasure to have you on the team, and it's just great to have an opportunity to chat with you.
Well, I've always been honoured to be part of Galen, so thank you for talking to me.
Not at all, not at all. Look forward to catching up with you very soon.
Oh, we need to. We definitely need to. Thank you, Julie.
Sarah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.